to this series of video programs on distance education. Essentially a supplement to the print materials, these programs present an alternative point of view or an extension of the content covered in the print materials. In some cases, the presentation may pertain to the situation in India. We hope that you'll be able to apply this to your own context.
India is a country of great distances. Nowhere this is more apparent than in the educational system. Despite an increase in the number of colleges and universities, there are places where education has yet to penetrate. People in such remote areas have hardly any access to higher or even middle-level education.
You see, in the last 40 years in our country, there has been a tremendous rise in education in our country. From 22 universities, we have moved on to around 160 universities or institutions of the university level. From around 700 colleges, we have gone up to around 5,500 colleges. And in terms of money, in the year 1950-51, we spent around 114 crores on education, and the data shows that in the year 84-85, we spent around 6,000 crores on education. Yet, when we look at the scene of our higher education, the normal college-going age group, that is 17 to 23 years, it is just 4.8% for higher education. This matches very unfavorably with most other countries in the world, such as in Japan this percentage is 30, in USA it is 55. So the point I was trying to make is that though we have made advances in the system of our education and expanded it tremendously, we are nowhere, because even today the percentage of literacy in our country is around 36%. Why is it so that in spite of all the effort that we have put in, we haven't made any specific, or we haven't made any appreciable progress? The reason is our population. You see, population grows at a geometric rate. And if we believe in the World Bank reports, their estimates, by the end of 2080, our country will have the largest number of illiterate people in the world. So something has to be done with this, you see. We need to overcome this difficulty. Now, one might say, why do we want to educate people? A simple answer, you see, human beings and population, vast population, is actually human resources. An uneducated person is something like a stone hanging in the neck of a swimmer, the swimmer being our society. And an educated person is actually something like a resource. It functions like minerals do, it functions like agriculture does, it functions like the industry does.
But education has ceased to be a meaningful experience for the young and hopeful learner. The number of persons who move from pillar to post seeking admission is on the rise. In fact, there is a war of percentage during admissions in the cities, and often a person misses a seat by a single mark.
I have topped in all India by scoring 89%, but they are not giving me admission.
As I have applied for geography honors over here, so they are demanding 68% in aggregate and 65% in the subject itself, as I have scored 82% in the subject and 61% in the aggregate. So now I have to try for it.
I think this always happens in our nation. We have to take it as the part of the student's life. Frustration forms a major part of it.
A lot of frustration present among the students today could be done away with if some modifications were brought into the courses if there were some kind of diversification in the courses. And people, the learners, I mean, were made to realize, were made to feel that professions other than, let us say, the white-collar jobs are as worthwhile as anything else. But that would need a deviation from the conventional type of education. The educational institutions will have to diversify their courses, but that usually becomes difficult for them to do. There are various constraints on them. Say the constraint of the timetable, the constraint of the availability of teachers, and as I said, the constraint of the convention itself. That is, since 5 years ago somebody was doing something this way, why should I change? Let me go the same way. There are vast numbers of students who really don't know what they are doing when they move from their college to another college, from schools to higher classes, and from those classes to still higher classes. They seem to be moving from schools to colleges and from colleges to universities just because perhaps they don't have anything else to do. This has resulted in some kind of what may be called devaluation in education. You see, many years ago, perhaps a student who had done his 7th class could have a good position in a government office. Then came a time when perhaps the same position would go to a matriculate. And now is the situation when even people with master's degrees have to apply for typists' places. Now, there is nothing wrong in being a typist, but socially, the input, the economic input that goes in producing a man with a master's degree really is not commensurate with the kind of task that typing is. And yet people do it because perhaps this person with a master's degree gets a premium in the employment market. Now, if such people had different educational avenues, if there were vocational education available, if they could go to trades right after they left the school, if things of this kind were available, it would really mean a revolution in education. So even within this class of people who are ignorant and really don't know what to do with themselves, even for them, you see, we need to see a new learner growing within them. And to satisfy the needs of this type of new learner, we need to give a different shape or need to give a different direction to our education. Our emphasis, I think, is that our education has to be utility oriented. That once one gets education, he should be able to use it. Use it for social production, for social upliftment.
Along with my employment, my job, I would like to continue my studies in order to achieve more information.
I want to build, first thing I want to build up my self-confidence so that I can know about the world. I want to increase the capability of my mind.
After independence, during these 4 decades, now 40 years, we see the emergence of a very different type of learner. This learner has different kinds of aspirations. He has deviated from the age-old concept of education once in a lifetime. Now, what do I mean by that? Once upon a time, it was thought that once a learner completed his BA, he had learned enough for his lifetime. Now, once a person got his MBBS, he was a doctor for his lifetime. It is not so today. Now, even if a person has his medical degree, things change every day. New drugs come in. New researches indicate new things. And they have to be learned by doctors, by professionals, and therefore they need constant education. parents would like to study in order to help their children. Then there are executives, managers, who would like to sharpen their skills. There are people who retire from active life and are yet active physically and mentally and would like to engage themselves in something profitable, something new. Then there are some others who would like to go in for one or the other type of education if it were available at cheap rates. So, you see, the question of economy comes in. A woman in a house who would like to have a course, handicapped persons who would need some kind of course for themselves. The concept of education now is that lifelong education is what the motto of a person in an enlightened society should be. So in other words, what we are trying to say is that today's student is looking for the creation of a learning society, a society that keeps on learning all through.
And we provide education to all within the existing university framework, keeping in view the growing awareness of the limitations of the formal system of education. Does our constitutional obligation entail any such responsibility?
It is a different question which has political basis, but in a deeper sense it has social basis. Constitutional obligation of the government. You see, it is perhaps for the first time in our history, around 1949, 1950, I am referring to Dr. Radhakrishnan's commission report on education, where we made a promise to the country, to the nation, that it will be the duty of the state to provide equal opportunities to all the people in the country for whatever kind of education they are looking for. Now, we need to see a major deviation in this. It is a major shift. Very, very briefly, if we touch upon the history of education in India, in ancient times, it was the learner, a highly motivated learner, who would go in search of his guru and then had a tough time to get entrance. Now, the same thing more or less happened during the agrarian feudal society, when we recall universities like Taxila or Nalanda. Students had to be highly motivated and they would move in search of their tutors, their teachers. Then we come to a very new phase of educational system in our country under the British imperialism. That is, education got commercialized. The teacher became a wage earner employed by somebody, and a group of students would come to the classroom like raw material, human raw material, and after the end of 10 years of education they would get a stamp, this certificate or the diploma or a degree, and then go into the employment market. Still the same thing continued. That is, the learner moved to the sources of education. But now, in a welfare state, in a democratic state, the trend has reversed completely. It is the state that goes in search of the learners, that promises to take education to their doorsteps. The state has kind of made a promise that they will educate all, which means universalizing education. At the same time, we are talking about yet another concept, that is democratizing education, which perhaps briefly would mean to provide education of a kind that is actually required by people and that is needed, or what people aspire for, what people are motivated for. But to do this, we need a change in the educational system that imposes a number of restrictions on our learners, such as learners can take only a set pattern of combinations. They have to complete their education in a particular time frame. That is, say for example, BA has to be completed in 3 years, though one may not be able to do so because of various social constraints.
7 years back, we were at Bangalore. I did my BA first year from Mysore University. I passed my first year from Mysore University by the time we got transferred to Delhi. So I had to discontinue the study because Mysore University has no other centers.
As we see in the view from that of job perspectives, the preference is given to the Delhi University and to the good colleges itself. So I prefer for the UNIV. And moreover, the subject I am trying to offer, and I am offering the geography honors, is not available in the other colleges.
The conventional system, we feel right now, perhaps cannot really solve these problems. If the conventional system really were able to solve this problem or these problems, they would perhaps have done or taken steps in that direction during the last 40 years. Perhaps they have tried their best, but obviously there are limitations, and therefore we need to think of different ways. Now, one of the ways available right now is what we call the system of distance education.
What is distance education? Will it satisfy all the domains of the learning teaching situation in education?
Education is provided to all those who want to get education, and they stay back at their own places, in their own homes, at the places where they work, or maybe some of them are in jails, and yet they can get their education. Now this is done by the application of multimedia approach. Parts of information are given through print, and parts of it can be given through audiovisual aids. We can bring in radio into play, we can bring in TV, you see, telephones can be used, satellites are used, and even human beings as in the traditional system. All these media put together is what we call the multimedia approach to education. Now, in education or in a learning and teaching situation, we talk of three domains mainly: the cognitive domain, the psychomotor domain, and the affective domain. The other terms used for these are, you see, cognitive domain may be information, knowledge, understanding. The psychomotor domain is the domain of skills, and the affective domain is what you mean by attitudes, changes in attitudes. Now, a usual lecture normally informs, helps a learner to understand things. This can very well be done through print, provided the learner knows how to read. Then as far as skills are concerned, obviously he has to pick up, or she has to pick up those skills. But even there, demonstrations can be presented with the help of videos or TV. We can bring in outstanding teachers who are not easily available to each and every student all over the country with the help of audios and videos or even TV technology. Lastly, we talk of attitudes of the affective domain. Some of us feel that the print may not be able to do a lot in this, but at the same time, print does. If the writing is persuasive, effective, it can do that. Nevertheless, we do bring in human beings also wherever needed, because there is certainly a section of learners who feel more comfortable once they are talked to, and we provide that also.
What made distance education evolve as a system over conventional and correspondence mode of education, where print and contact between teacher and learner play a vital role?
The conventional system which we are used to places the teacher in front of the learners, and the teaching takes place in a face-to-face situation. From this we moved on to correspondence education, where the information was given through the print material. And normally the purpose of the courses was to prepare students for examination. But as we move on to distance education, we bring into play the role of educational media, researches in learning and teaching, and thereby put all those efforts together, and at the same time then use the multimedia system, try to do different things in different ways. So in distance education system, the medium changes from one, that is print, to the various types of media, and then at the same time the purpose of such courses given through distance education also becomes broader. It is lifelong education, renewing information, sitting for examinations, democratizing education, etc. Now this then moves on to a further stage with the help of researchers, as I was talking about, that self-instructional materials are being produced. Most of the earlier correspondence courses did not really use self-instructional materials. But the distance education materials as a rule are self-instructional. The teacher is almost built into the materials. And then things that need to be given through the electronic media are given through the electronic media. But even then, the materials, the package, is a finite thing. It runs from one cover to the other cover. And when it is presented to learners, it is a finite entity, while as the learner variety is infinite. And for this finite package, it may not be possible to satisfy the needs, the cravings, or the temperaments, which are really infinite in number. And therefore comes in the role of a man also.
Well, if it has a good recognition in the nation, it has good facilities, only then it will be able to satisfy the needs of the student. If it comes into existence without proper material, without proper recognition and all, then it doesn't have any value to me.
But mostly whenever we talk to people about this system, they are skeptic about its success. They don't believe that the system will really work. But if there is any kind of evidence to be believed in, for example, the British Open University, their materials, and the way they give courses, the way they combine various courses, various combinations, have done really wonders in their country. Thousands of their students have got education through these materials, and not only the students of the Open University, but that of the conventional universities also use those materials because they find them very, very useful. The point I was trying to make is that most of the things that we conventionally do in a classroom situation or in laboratories and elsewhere can really be done through this system also. And the entire technology is used, is at our disposal. This system accommodates use of labs wherever they are available, with some kind of cooperation with existing institutions, colleges, universities. So even science students can benefit themselves through this system. In a sense, distance education is then kind of a reformation. It is a reform, going off from teacher-centered type of education to learner-centered type of education. The learner is given importance. But the problem is that education is closely related with human beings. With every passing year, we will have a new lot of learners coming forth. And therefore, time frame is very, very significant. We should be able to educate our people in a reasonably short period of time. And therefore, again, because of this time constraint, we need to have a system which will have something like industrial dimensions. And this distance education provides those dimensions. We produce materials on large scales, admissions take place on large scales, and the courses are diversified, so even the offerings are on large scale. And people diversify their activities, their interests, with the result economic development takes place. People become economically productive in various fields of life, and thereby the country also becomes rich.